was feeding it and parked there, he'd walk right up next to your car. And they're awesome animals. I mean, clearly not as big as an elephant, but there's something so prehistoric about their appearance. It's like an encounter with a dinosaur.
Yeah, they look like dinosaurs, but are they normally quite dangerous to get next to? Are they as territorial as hippos, for example?
They can be. The black rhino is far more aggressive, even though it's smaller. The white rhino can be, and particularly a female with a calf. But normally you would be far more wary about allowing one to come so close or approaching as closely as we did with one horn. And so, but I felt I had a bond with him, and this is always the mistake that safari guides make, that wildlife people around the world make, is you get convinced that you have a bond with this animal and it would never hurt you, and you forget that it's still 3,000 kilograms of potentially dangerous animal. And so I'd parked the vehicle, and he was cropping the grass, and this big pendulum movement of this massive head, and he came closer and closer and closer, and I didn't have a door on my vehicle. There's no roof, there's no windscreen, there was no door.
You have tourists in with you as well?
Tourists with me. 6 tourists in the back, and he walked straight up to the front, and Titus said to me, he's getting a bit close. But by then, his head was down and his horn was up, and if I startled him, the horn would have gone straight through my chair and ended up in an uncomfortable position. So I just let him keep feeding. And then he moved around the vehicle and turned around to the front of the vehicle, and Titus sat there, as I said, on the bonnet with his legs dangling over the front. So they were over the left headlight. And now one horn was cropping towards those, so he had to spin on his chair and put them on. And as he brushed by the vehicle, there must have been a loose wire on the radiator grill, and it gave him a scratch. Now, a rhino's skin's up to 6 centimetres thick, so if they've got an itch, it's really hard to scratch it, and he obviously liked this sensation, so he started rubbing against it. And as I said, 3,000 kilograms, a Land Rover with 6 tourists, a driver and a tracker, you're still not really an even match. And he started really getting into it and rubbing backwards and forth.
Your tourists must be going out of their minds at this point.
Yes, because
Watching a gigantic rhino scratch itself on the bonnet of your car.
Yep, right against the front. And of course I could hear wires twanging, and I was still new at the job at this point, and I thought, I imagine I'm going to get into some trouble for this. I really didn't want to lose my job, but I didn't want to start the car either and startle him, because at that point he was just scratching, and I really didn't want him to get aggressive if his scratching post started growling at him. And Titus eventually slithered over the bonnet, and he sat down and he said, "Matata for," which just means we've got a problem, brother. And I said, well, yes, I think we probably do. He's ripping up the radiator. And he said, "Minabugile tuumpondo." I saw 2 horns, and I immediately thought there must be another rhino, there's going to be a clash, and we're going to be stuck in the middle, and there's a problem. So I was looking around, and suddenly I thought, oh, he was being subtle. I thought, oh. And I said, "Wanam pondo funa faga pagati," which is, does he want to mate with us? And Titus just said, "Matata, it's a problem." And I thought, yes, that most certainly is a problem. And so with this time I wasn't so concerned about what he did to us, and I put it into reverse, and without saying a word to the tourist, because I didn't have time to explain and I didn't want to serenade him with a voice, just slammed in reverse and flew out of there. And we got away, and poor lonely Uncle One Horn was left standing there with his excitement quite visible. And I've got to admit, I've still got this lingering fascination as to what he would have tried to do if we'd stayed around.
You never get that mess out of the Jeep either.
No, no.
That's remarkable. And I was reading in your book that they actually have some staying power, these rhinos.
Yeah.
I can make love up to how long?
Up to 2 hours.
2 hours.
Now that, perhaps it's with the 6 centimetre thick skin, it takes that long for the female to notice. But you'll sometimes see, you'll come out into a plain, and there's a female contentedly cropping away with this, multi-tonned animal on her back, and she just keeps eating, and you think, do you not know that he's there, or are you just not that into it?
Must be like 2 trucks having a crash again and again and again.
That's right, yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
The tourists must have been just out of their minds. They must have been, enormously impressed by the show you were able to put on for them.
Oh, yeah, and that's just it. The moments like that are technically a disaster are the ones that people go away from. People go on safari hoping for an experience, and if it's all just, you see this, you saw that, we saw the lions, they were nice. It's great to have something like that happen, something completely out of the ordinary.
Yes, Uncle One Horn becomes Uncle Two Horn.